Hello there, it's Miss Standring here, and I'm going to share with you one of my favourite stories. It's called Ada Twist, Scientist. And this is one of my favourite books because it's about a young girl called Ada who's very, very curious. She has a head which is filled with questions, and she just loves to go on fact-finding missions and design elaborate scientific experiments. Okay, let's start reading this book. It's by Andrea Beattie and illustrated by David Roberts. Ada Marie, said not a word till the day she turned 3. She bounced in her crib and looked all around, observing the world but not making a sound. She learned how to climb and made her big break, with a trail of chaos left in her wake. She ran through the day chasing each sound in sight and didn't slow down till she conked out at night. And there she is, conked out, fast asleep on top of the drawers. And if you have a look here, all the mess on the floors, that's the chaos that she's left behind her as she's going around observing the world. And I think that must be her big brother that's pointing up to her. Her parents were frazzled, but tried not to freak, as Ada grew bigger and still did not speak. Clearly young Ada, with lots in her head, would have something to say when it ought to be said. So Ada's parents were a bit worried because she wasn't speaking, and they thought that she should be speaking by now. That's just what happened when Ada turned 3. She tore through the house on a fact-finding spree and climbed up the clock just as high as she could. Her parents yelled, "Stop!" as all good parents would. Ada's chin quivered, but she did not cry. She took a deep breath and she simply asked, "Why?" That was her first word, a question word. She wants to know why. And then she keeps asking lots of questions. Why does it tick and why does it tock? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock? Why are there pointy things stuck to a rose? Why are there hair? Why are there hairs up the inside of your nose? She started with why and then what, how and when. By bedtime she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep as her dazed parents smile at the curious thoughts of their curious child, who wanted to know what the world was about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." What great question she's asking about the world. And here we have lots more questions. And look at those question words. Why, what, how, when. Lots of different questions she has about the world and her observations. Her parents kept up with their high-flying kid, whose questions and chaos both grew as she did. Even Miss Greer found her hands were quite full when young Ada's chaos wreaked havoc at school, but this much was clear about Miss Ada Twist. She had all the traits of a great scientist. And there she is at school doing an elaborate science experiment. And I think Miss Greer, the teacher, looks a bit worried, probably because of all the mess that's been created. But look at the children. Look at her classmates. They're cheering, they're laughing, they're really enjoying all of these science experiments that Ada's doing with them. Looks quite fun, doesn't it? Ada was busy that first day of spring, testing the sounds that make mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whacked right in the nose, a pungent aroma that curled up her toes. "Zowie," said Ada, which got her to thinking, what is the source of that terrible stinking? How does a nose know there's something to smell, and does it still stink if there's no nose to tell? She rattled off questions and tapped on her chin. She'd start at the start where she ought to begin. a mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ada loved best. And what is her scientific question? Her scientific question is, what is the source of that terrible stinking? Where is that terrible smell coming from? And I wonder if you can see from the picture where that terrible smell is coming from, because I can see her big brother going past with his shoes in his hand, and he's just been playing tennis. I'm wondering if the terrible smell comes from those shoes. What do you think? And here she is doing an observation about smells, or an experiment about smells. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling and smells, both the stinky and good. One hypothesis Ada thought could be true. The terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. So her hypothesis is this is what she thinks the answer is to her question about where the smell is coming from. And her first hypothesis was from Dad's stew, but she doesn't think that one's quite right now that she's tested it. So she's got a second hypothesis. Let's read on and find out what that hypothesis is. Then Zowie, the stink stuck again, just like that. Hypothesis 2, it's caused by the cat. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne, so young Ada tested. The test was a flop. Oh no, it didn't work. She started again, but her parents yelled, "Stop!" Why do you think her parents have yelled, "Stop"? Look what she's doing. She's trying to clean the cat in the washing machine. That is not the way to clean a cat. No wonder her parents have asked her to stop. Ada Marie, to the thinking chair now by the time we count 3. Enough, said her mother. That's it, said her dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. Why? Ada questioned. Her mother said no. What? Ada queried. Her father said, go. You've ruined our supper. You've made the cat stink. Enough with your questions. Now sit there and think. She looked at her parents. Her heart turned to goo. Poor Ada Twist didn't know what to do. So her parents are cross with her because she ruined Dad's dinner, and then she put all those funny smells onto the cat. So she's going to go and think about it on the thinking chair. And here she is on her thinking chair, thinking about what she's been up to. Oh, poor Ada. She doesn't look very happy. She sat all alone by herself in the hall, and Ada once more could say nothing at all. I wonder what Ada is going to do. She's a girl whose head is filled with questions. Do you think she's just going to sit there? Let's keep reading and see what she gets up to. Look at what she's doing. She is thinking. She's continuing with her science experiments and her hypothesizing. And so Ada sat, and she sat, and she sat, and she thought about science and Stew and the cat, and how her experiments made such a big mess. Does it have to be so? Is that part of success? A mess is a problem, and while she was thinking, what was the source of that terrible stinking? Ada Marie did what scientists do. She asked a small question, and then she asked 2, and each of those led her to 3 questions more, and some of those questions resulted in 4. As Ada got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped on her chin. She started at why, and then what, how, and when. At the end of the hall, she reached why once again. And there she is, trying to work out the source of the stinking. She's not giving up. She's persevering until she finds the answer. And here she is, writing out all of her experiments and ideas, and she's doing it on her wall. I don't think that's a very good idea. I think perhaps you probably should have done it on a notepad or a piece of paper, but let's see what happens. Her parents calmed down and they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and just had to gawk. No patch of bare paint could be seen on the wall. The thinking chair now was the great thinking hall. They watched their young daughter and sighed as they did. What would they do with this curious kid who wanted to know what the world was about? They smiled and whispered, "We'll figure it out." And they're very understanding about what she's doing there and what great picture she's got trying to work out her ideas. And that's what they did, because that's what you do when your kid has a passion and a heart that is true. They remade their world. Now they're all in the act of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asked lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. So now the parents and the brother are all joining in and trying to work out and solve all of the different scientific questions that they come up with. And as for that smell, what can Ada Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? Will they discover the stink that curls toes? Well, that is the question. And someday, who knows? And there they are with the equipment that Ada has developed to try and test and find out where different smells come from. Okay, so that is the end of our story. What a great story about a young girl with lots of questions and how she kept trying to find out what the source was of the stinking. If you enjoyed that story, here are 2 more books by the author and illustrator: Rosie Revere, engineer; Iggy Peck, architect. And if you see me around school, just ask, because I've got a copy of both of these books and maybe I can come in and read them with you. Thanks for joining in with my story. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.